In 2019, The Athletic released an anonymous poll to current and former players of the game, asking them some questions, but most importantly, who they thought the NBA's GOAT was. At the time, 73% of the players said Michael Jordan, with LeBron James and Kobe Bryant battling it out for second place with 10% and 11% to each. In 2024, they decided to run it back with this anonymous questionnaire. However, the second time, the results were shocking. Fast forward another championship and finals MVP, breaking the scoring record, and a bunch of longevity piling up in LeBron's favor, and the King is only trailing by less than 5% to Air Jordan, with Kobe still near 10%. For the first time in pretty much forever, Michael Jordan was not the majority pick for the GOAT anymore. Over the last decade or so, Jordan, LeBron, and Kobe have been pretty much cemented as the three-headed GOAT in the eyes of NBA players and fans. But there's one issue. Kobe Bryant really shouldn't be in the GOAT debate, and this isn't even a hot take. Kobe Bryant's stats compared to Michael Jordan and LeBron James just aren't on the same level. Kobe Bryant is last in the 5 major stats of points, rebounds, assists, blocks, and steals. The Black Mamba is also by far the least efficient of these 3 players, shooting under 45% for his career. Taking a look at each of the 3's basketball resumes, things get even worse for the Mamba. Kobe Bryant just has 1 MVP, 2 finals MVPs, and less All-NBA and All-Star selections than LeBron James. While Kobe does have more rings than the King, 3 of them were at the hands of prime Shaquille O'Neal, the most dominant player to ever lace up on a basketball floor. You could even make the argument that Kobe Bryant was never the best player in the league. The Mamba hit his prime in the 2000s, but honestly got outshined by Tim Duncan in this era, where the big fundamental had 3 titles, 2 MVPs, and 2 finals MVPs in Kobe's era. Later on, LeBron James was taking all the MVPs that the Mamba was so eager to win in the late 2000s and early 2010s. The dominance you had in your era can't be put into question like this if you want to be known as the greatest. It's time to expose everyone's favorite NBA legend, and we just took out the Black Mamba. Now let's get into Kobe's champion teammate, Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq is seen by many, and myself, as the most dominant force the league has ever seen. During the late 90s and early 2000s, Shaquille O'Neal was the undisputed best player in the world, and arguably had the greatest peak of all time. Shaq was putting up video game-like numbers in the 2000, 2001, and 2002 NBA Finals. He was just 1 vote off of a unanimous MVP in 2000. I mean, you could pencil in 30, 15, and 3 blocks a night from Shaq in his prime and not break a sweat. You'd be more worried about the rim coming down if anything. Shaq was an animal during his prime, but that's the thing, during his prime. Shaq, before his peak with the Magic, got swept in the NBA Finals by Hakeem Olajuwon and then got swept by Michael Jordan in 1996. Not to mention his losses against Malone and Robinson. After his peak with the Lakers, his numbers took a sharp decline, where he was eventually too slow and unplayable, moving towards a faster-paced brand of basketball. Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and Shaq's running mate Kobe Bryant were all still elite in their old age. You can't say the same about the Diesel. To be the GOAT, you have to be dominant for an extended period of time. 1 three-peat isn't good enough. Steph Curry has pioneered and dominated the game like none other. To this day, he's still one of the most feared players in the league that gets picked up from half court without fail. You know you're good when people argue that you dominated the 2010s more than LeBron James. However, Curry might be the worst defender of everyone mentioned on this video. Curry faces similar issues as Kobe Bryant, where his resume isn't quite up to par with some of the GOATs. 2 MVPs is a bit low to be entertained in this debate, and his lone finals MVP in 2022 eats away at his legacy. Steph Curry also won the majority of his championships with unbelievably stacked teams that go down in NBA history as the best ever. The 1 year where Cleveland was fully healthy and Golden State didn't have Durant yet, Steph and Golden State crumbled. You can't boast 1 finals MVP while winning championships with super teams and call yourself the GOAT. If stats, awards, and championships were never a thing, you could make the argument for KD being the GOAT. Purely based off the eye test, KD is a 7-footer that moves like he's 6'3" with a tight handle, killer jump shot, and great passing, while being a pretty scary defender. If you were to make a basketball player in a lab, it would probably come out looking a lot like KD. But unfortunately for the Slim Reaper, stats, rings, and awards do exist, and they matter a lot. It's not all just about getting buckets. Kevin Durant hasn't even accomplished level 1 of the GOAT debate. Leading your own team to a championship. Everyone else in this video, plus others that got left off like Giannis, Dirk, D-Wade, Kawhi, and even SGA have all led their own team to a championship. While KD does have both the finals MVPs in Golden State, he joined a team that was already 73-9 who won before him, they won after him, and they were probably going to win without him. You can't call yourself the GOAT if you can't even lead your own team to a championship. If you were ranking pure skill, footwork, touch, defense, and post moves, Hakeem might be your number 1. He's one of the most aesthetically pleasing players to ever touch a basketball. The Dream had an unreal stretch in 1994 and 1995 where he won back-to-back championships and became the only player ever to win the MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and Finals MVP all in one season. But there's one major elephant in the room. The 2 years Michael Jordan retired, Hakeem swooped in and took advantage of a power vacuum. Outside of those 2 years, no titles, and only one other finals run in 1986 with Ralph Sampson. In fact, he missed the playoffs or went out in the first round 10 times in his career. Couple this lack of playoff longevity with a pretty weak resume compared to the other GOATs. Hakeem was an all-time great talent, but the resume just isn't up to par. If you want to be the GOAT, you need an entire career of terror, not just a moment of magic. Now, some of you guys might be surprised that Jokic is even mentioned in this video, but don't doubt the Serbian Diesel. Nikola Jokic has had a 5-year peak statistically that rivals the greatest of the greats like Jordan and LeBron. His peak regular and advanced stats mirror that of a true GOAT, but I think it's too early for the Joker. Nikola Jokic only has one championship where 3 of the 4 teams he beat in the playoffs were in the play-in tournament, and the other just made a blockbuster trade 3 months before the playoffs, completely throwing off their chemistry. You can't lose to a 22-year-old rising star and a guy you were supposedly better than on the biggest stage of basketball. His 3 MVPs are already a phenomenal start, but he still needs to build out the rest of his resume. In addition, the unreal numbers he puts up hides the fact that Jokic has been a defensive liability throughout most of his career and average at best. To be the GOAT, you need more than a single championship run littered with play-in teams. If you were new to basketball and you went to Wilt Chamberlain's basketball reference page, you might just fall for the sexy stats and point averages. I mean, who else could average 50 while playing 48.5 minutes a game and never miss a night? GOAT stuff, am I right? Wilt Chamberlain is widely known as the GOAT for something else though. Stat padding. The Big Dipper routinely cared more about how his stats looked compared to actually winning ball games. Bill Russell, Wilt's biggest competitor during his career, said, "Wilt is concerned with how many points he gets. I'm concerned with how many rings I get." Countless other 60s legends said very similar things about Wilt's stat padding and lack of will to win. During the early 60s, you would think that Wilt Chamberlain putting up 30, 40, 50 points a night would lead to winning, right? Think again. Chamberlain's Warriors and 76ers in the early to mid-60s would routinely finish with mediocre records and fall short in the playoffs. While many NBA legends rise in the postseason, Chamberlain's numbers routinely took a dip during the playoffs like clockwork. Wilt lost 7 of 8 playoff series that he had against Bill Russell and the Celtics. When it mattered most, Wilt shriveled up like a raisin. If you want to be the GOAT, your will to win and dominance of your own era cannot be put into question. You know you're pretty good at basketball and should be put into the GOAT debate when you have more rings than you have fingers and routinely make the man who broke record books in your era look like a little girl in the playoffs. But let's not get it twisted though. Those 11 championships in the 50s and 60s are not the same as winning them today. In Russell's era, there was only 8 to 14 teams in the league, with only 3 or even 2 total playoff rounds. I mean, even I could have snagged a ring or 2 in Russell's era. Bill is arguably the best defender the game has ever seen, but his offensive production is laughably bad compared to the other GOATs. Russell in his career averaged 15.1 points on 44% efficiency. This alone might disqualify him from the GOAT debate, but even worse, Bill Russell has never been the leading scorer of his own team. Routinely, throughout the 13 years Bill Russell was in the NBA, he was never the top scorer on his team, and some years he wasn't even top 2 or 3. As a matter of fact, many of the years he was even the 4th or even the 5th highest scorer on his team. Let's keep it 100. Getting buckets is the most important part of basketball. Your offensive game and level of competition can't be put into question if you want to be called the GOAT. Tim Duncan, throughout the 2000s and 2010s, quietly played one of the greatest careers of all time. The big fundamental is the only player in league history to win a championship in 3 separate decades. He has the most all-defensive team selections in NBA history, and has a basketball resume that can go toe-to-toe with the GOATs. One of the most consistent players the game has ever seen. But let's be real, to be the GOAT, you need to be more than just consistent, you need to be amazing. Tim Duncan has a career average of 19 points a game, while averaging 25.5 points a game in his best season. When taking a look at the GOAT's true shooting percentage, an efficiency stat that accounts for free throws taken, and 3-pointers being worth more and more difficult to make, Duncan, despite being a big man, falls near the bottom of this stat, even against perimeter players taking farther shots on average. Tim could never take over a game offensively the way Jordan, Kobe, LeBron, or several other of the GOATs could. Duncan is known as a defensive guy, but was never able to achieve the highest defensive honor in the sport. Of course, that being the Defensive Player of the Year, an issue some of the other GOATs can't relate to. The big fundamental always had help around him throughout his career, with Popovich as his coach for his entire time in the league, David Robinson, who was in his prime in the 90s, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili in the 2000s, Kawhi Leonard in the 2010s, and a competent Spurs organization the entire time. A luxury that many of the other legends can't boast. If you want to be the GOAT, you can't just be solid for 20 years. You need to be amazing and a feared killer. You know you belong in the GOAT debate when you had a 42-point, 15-rebound NBA Finals closeout game while playing center when you're a point guard in your rookie season. The Showtime Lakers with Magic Johnson never dipped below 54 wins and were in the NBA Finals 9 of 12 years. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Magic Johnson stood at 6'9", 215 pounds, but routinely got cooked by smaller and shiftier guards. He was known as a defensive negative who never made an all-defensive team his entire career, something the other GOATs can't say about themselves. Magic Johnson, from the day he was drafted to the day he called it quits, always had all-star help and all-NBA talent around him. Johnson never played a season without another all-star in his roster, and he won 3 of his 5 championships with multiple all-stars on his team, a luxury that the other GOATs never had. As soon as the magic of Showtime faded away in the late 80s and early 90s, and Magic Johnson was in his prime, he struggled to win. Similar to Bill Russell, Magic Johnson's scoring abilities also aren't at GOAT level. I mean, better than Russell, but not at a level of the other GOATs, averaging less than 20 points a game for his career. You cannot call yourself the GOAT if you can't win without a super team and can't get buckets at will. Larry Bird is one of the greatest shooters and three-way scorers the league has ever seen. He was a rookie in 1980 and won a championship by year 2 in 81, while actually being the best player in his team. Sorry, Magic. But it's tough to call yourself the GOAT when you weren't even the best player in your own era. When taking a look at the two players' stats head to head, I would argue that Magic Johnson has a slight lead here, but Johnson wipes the floor with advanced numbers that show impact and effectiveness on the floor, taking a clear lead in this department. Digging deeper into their basketball resumes, Magic and Bird have the same 3 MVPs, but Johnson has more finals MVPs, more rings, and has a winning record against Bird in the finals, along with the same All-NBA and All-Star selections. Which brings me to my next point. Bird's time at his peak, about 7 to 8 years, is considered too short for most fans and critics to really have him in the debate. All of the years of hitting the hardwood at full force and going all out for his team really costed him. You can't be the GOAT if you were never the best player in your own era and broke down before your early 30s. When looking at Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's resume at first, you would think it's very impressive and even GOAT-worthy, which it kinda is. Kareem has 6 MVPs, more than Jordan and LeBron. He has 6 championships, and he has the All-NBA and All-Star selections that only LeBron James can compete with. However, he's excluded from the GOAT debate for a few reasons. After winning his first title in 1971 with the Bucks, he went nearly a decade without touching the Larry O'Brien again. And this decade was filled with multiple choke jobs that weren't supposed to happen. The Milwaukee Bucks were the 1 seed in the Western Conference and choked to the 4-seeded Golden State Warriors in the first round, where Jabbar's numbers plummeted. In 1974, Kareem and the Bucks got outplayed by Dave Cowens and the Boston Celtics in Game 7 of the NBA Finals in Milwaukee, where the Bucks lost by 15 points. In 1975 and 76, a peak Kareem Abdul-Jabbar didn't even make the playoffs. In 77, Kareem and the 1-seeded Lakers got swept by the 3-seeded Portland Trailblazers. And in 1981, Kareem and the reigning champion LA Lakers with Magic Johnson lost to the Moses Malone Rockets in the first round, where Malone was eating against Kareem. Kareem's 6 MVPs more reflect the weaker pool of competition in the 70s due to the expansion of the ABA. And 5 of Kareem's 6 championships were won with the Showtime Lakers, where Jabbar was past his prime and it was Magic Johnson who was the best player. You can't consistently choke on the big stage in a watered down era if you want to be called the GOAT. You know you deserve a spot in the GOAT debate when you have more points than anyone else in NBA history. You're the only player that's in the 40K, 10K, 10K club of points, rebounds, and assists, and you have more All-NBA selections than Kevin Garnett and David Robinson combined. And you had about 4 different primes in the NBA. Alright, I think that's enough LeBron glazing for this video. Despite all this, the King still isn't number 1 in the GOAT debate poll for a reason. LeBron James is one of the few GOATs of this video that has a losing record in the NBA Finals. As a matter of fact, 12 of the 14 GOATs in this video have a winning Finals record, except LeBron James and Wilt Chamberlain. And let's not hide the fact that LeBron James was responsible for many of his team's postseason losses. LeBron James in 2011 had probably the greatest team of his career with D-Wade and Bosh, as close to their primes as possible. However, it was the King who criminally underperformed in the NBA Finals, leading to a 33-year-old Dirk Nowitzki winning a championship. In 2007, LeBron James got completely locked up by the Spurs, where he couldn't even win a single game in the finals. In 2008, LeBron James had some egregious games against the Boston Celtics that made Kobe Bryant look like a calculated shooter. In 2010, when the Cavs had the 1 seed in the East, it was yet again the Boston Celtics who made LeBron look like he forgot how to play basketball at times. The Chosen One made the finals 10 times, but against pretty weak competition in the East, the Eastern Conference we like to call it. He did all this while switching super teams every couple of years, only to still be chasing the championship count of many of the GOATs in this video. You can't call yourself the GOAT when you lose on the big stage more than you win, with all the superstars at your disposal. Now, this is going to be tough. As much as I don't want to expose Air Jordan, because he's my GOAT, everyone's catching smoke today. Exposing Michael Jordan is a pretty hard task. The guy has all the hardware in the world, an undefeated record in the finals, unworldly individual numbers, and really has never had any choke moments that many of the other GOATs do. but I'll tell you where you can get MJ. Air Jordan played against weak competition during the Bulls championship window. There, I said it. I mean, you don't have to take it from me. Take it from Jordan's teammate Dennis Rodman, who said himself that the competition in the 90s was watered down. Jordan's toughest competition in his career was against the Larry Bird Celtics and the Bad Boy Pistons, two dynasties that peaked before Jordan and the Bulls were a championship caliber team. And once MJ and Pippen hit their peak and they got Phil Jackson, poof. The dynasties that once ruled the NBA, like the Celtics, Lakers, and Pistons, fell off, leaving the doors wide open for Jordan. Who is Mike's toughest competition in the 90s, you ask? The Sonics or Jazz? LeBron had to go up against the Splash Brother Warriors, Steph had to play against Kyrie and LeBron, Kobe had to battle the Big Three in Boston, Wilt and Bill had to face off against each other every other year of their career. Same story with Bird and Magic. Tim Duncan had to battle the Big Three in Miami. But Michael Jordan? The Gary Payton and Shawn Kemp Supersonics? Great teams, but none of the teams that Mike went up against on the big stage really jump out at you as legendary competition. You cannot be the GOAT when your toughest competition played before your championship window. Or maybe you can. Let me know in the comments who your GOAT is and why, and let me know if your favorite NBA legend got exposed in this video.